It's Waxing Lyrical, baby.
Hello, Waxers, and welcome to Waxing Lyrical with Mains and Dutch. I'm your host, Mains, and my colleague, working out at left tackle for the New York Giants tomorrow morning, it's Mr. Neil Dutton. How are we, Neil?
I would be ashamed to draw a salary if I was as bad at my job as Eric Flowers is at his.
He's not great, and it's something that needs to be worked upon if you're a Giants fan. As a Washington fan and as a Philadelphia fan, please continue. I have no issue with what's going on right now.
They can start working on it on Monday.
Yeah. Obviously, it's week 3. We did week 1. We didn't do week 2. My fault. Selfish bastard. Got married in Italy, so couldn't do the show. I assumed Dutton would do the show himself, but as he's a lazy bastard, he didn't.
No, I'm saying I've obviously had about 10 days to come up with an excuse, and I'm too lazy to even do that.
Exactly. The dog couldn't even be bothered to get the dog to eat his podcast.
Although I will say, obviously, that's slightly below the belt, as one of the dogs did pass away.
Obviously.
So you started on a really good note this week.
Really good note this week. Here we go. This could get tasty. Usual fare this week. We got some hot wax takes. The mains hot wax takes this week.
Because I couldn't be bothered doing anything.
Dutton too lazy to do his own. Fantastic 3 games of the week. I say fantastic. One of them is contractually obliged to be fantastic. We've got the fancy darling or fancy loser of the week, and then we'll drop some knowledge with our DFS team of the week. So let's get this party started and let's do some mains hot wax takes. So Dutton, I've been thinking about this, and I've got 4 takes this week that are so hot, they're literally on fire. And some of them actually may be true, but let's not let that get in the way of it being a hot take.
No.
So, hot take 1 is pretty simple for me. The Colts 0-2 look like an absolute dumpster fire. I think they should bag the whole season, finish with the number 1 pick in the draft, and then trade it to a stupid team like the New York Jets who'll want Sam Darnold, and then get draft picks and hopefully do better with draft picks than they have in the past.
They go 1-15. They send Andrew Luck to IR now, shut him down for the whole season. Go 1-15, 2-14. Fire Chuck Pagano, get the first overall pick, which they don't need because it'll be a quarterback. Transfer that into multiple picks this year and some next year. Andrew Luck then will have had a full year to recover. Tell me that isn't then the most attractive job offering for any offensive coach.
It's a tremendous job offering for Sean Payton, who will be fired as the New Orleans Saints coach GM. Will be tail between his legs, will take a job where he isn't the GM, and he's gone from Drew Brees to Andrew Luck.
See, this is it. I mean, you want to bring in though, you need to change the culture and bring in a winner. A coach who's gone 0-2 the last 4 years isn't a winner.
True. I'm trying to think who else would be a good coach though. I just saw offensive coach, and I think that Sean Payton's probably the best one who could possibly be on the market. Unless you go to the hip new offensive coordinator de jour.
Who would that be though?
That's exactly at the moment. I don't know. Second take, Dutton. I can't talk about the Colts anymore. It makes me sick. And the thought of that game even appearing on my telly against the Cleveland Browns means I may have to switch my TV on and never switch it back on again.
Do you know the Browns are favoured?
Yes, I do. It's only the 6th time they've been favoured in a road game since they became the Cleveland Browns again in 1999.
Jesus wept.
So I'll think about that for a long time. Second take, Dutton. The AFC West is the best division in football, and it's not even close.
The numbers would back it up. I mean, you could argue that the worst team in it, certainly from a record standpoint, should be 2-0, but are 0-2 because they've got no killer instincts. But I say the Chiefs boat raced the Patriots and were good enough against the Eagles. They kept the Eagles at arm's length. The Broncos, again, saw off the spirited Chargers and then shut down the Cowboys. And the Raiders are just purring. it's just a well-oiled machine to watch. The Raiders' offense, I can't think of another team. I mean, everyone says the NFC West. Please get that junk out of my face.
Get that out of my face. Good news, bad news for the NFC East portion of our team, i.e. both of us, is that we get the full set of the AFC West. Bad news for me is I don't get the Raiders when they're not pairing. I get the Raiders this week in Washington. Just so you know.
It will come up.
Yeah, it may come back up later. Third take done. We have been happy to jump on the Jim Caldwell's dead. Jim Caldwell has no personality and no soul bandwagon. But with the Detroit Lions, he is 29 and 21 with 2 playoff appearances, and he's 2-0 this season. He's better than anybody on the planet wishes to admit.
It's just because he looks dead. I mean, obviously he's got, we're talking about coordinators. He's got Jim Bob Cooter.
Yeah.
Obviously with a Peyton Manning link, so maybe, Manning, the Colts and that, something could happen. The defense is good enough. Obviously they've been lucky that they're playing an imploding Cardinals team and it's hard to really call it paper thin offensive line for the Giants because paper has substance and the offensive line of the New York Giants does not. But they are pairing on offense, and I'm not being funny. When have you ever seen the Detroit Lions manage a second half to the extent that Matt Stafford only completed only threw 4 passes or something ridiculous in the second half because they knew they could get by on the ground game and on defense? That doesn't happen. That's not the Detroit Lions I've ever seen.
I don't think it's the Detroit Lions that anybody still alive has ever seen. I think what should be noted is it's very easy for some. There's 2 different types of head coaches. Ones who seem to be involved in everything, and ones that allow their coordinators and their position coaches to do their job while they become a manager of the overall situation. And Jim Caldwell is the second. And
he's like a CEO.
He's allowed Cooter and Terrell Austin to do their jobs and not really got too involved in a kind of a management style that I like. If you've got an issue, let me know and I'll deal with it. Otherwise, I'll assume everything's going great. And if it's not, then I'll tear your head off. And that's kind of how he's done it. It's like, I look at San Francisco, who suck on offense at the moment. And the reason they suck on offense is Kyle Shanahan's trying to do 750 things. He needs to take a breath and a step back and have a think about that. But
he should ask his, if he should ask his dad, because we all think, that Mike Shanahan's a genius. But as we've said, what did Mike Shanahan do once Gary Kubiak left him?
Not much.
Yeah, so Kubes took a great deal of pressure off him and allowed Shanahan to be the overall, the overseer, take the 30,000 foot view. But Shanahan is getting too involved in the minutiae, and the offense is putrid. And he's had success with Hoyer before. Yeah, he's also seen Hoyer suck, and this is the Hoyer that sucks.
Yeah, I mean, it just on that, I've been first on the slagging Matthew Stafford off. 2 years ago, he was benched for Dan Orlovsky. It kind of suggests that good coaching equals good quarterback play. Teams with bad coaches or teams with bad quarterbacks, take note. Maybe instead of changing your quarterback 740 times, maybe you could actually get a coach who knows how to coach a quarterback. See Sean McVay in Los Angeles for details, who's turned Jared Goff into a serviceable NFL quarterback with a passer rating of 146 on passes over 20 yards. That makes him number one, Dutton. Do you know who's 32nd?
In passer rating?
Passer rating over 20 yards. Let me give
Brian
you...
Hoyer?
No, it's not.
Russell Wilson?
No, it's Kirk Cousins.
Ah.
So, and do you know where he was last year? He
Top?
was first. Weirdly, good coaching equals good quarterback play.
Who'd have thought?
Last one, Dutton. We mentioned the Giants already. We never understood the Giants hype. Didn't get it. And I've consistently said that Eli Manning is done and he has no offensive line. Well, guess what? Eli Manning is done, and he has no offensive line. However, they're playing the Eagles on the road. They are 0-2 and fighting for their lives, and you can get 6. I'm not saying they win the game. I'd be stunned if they lost by more than a field goal.
The Eagles can't close out a game because they've shown they don't have the ability or the desire to play 4 minutes, at the end of the game, pound the rock. To be fair, the first game they didn't really have the chance because it was still in the balance to an extent. And last week they were playing catch-up. But LeGarrette Blount did not log a single carry last week. I'm sorry, that's what you brought him in to do something. You kept 5 running backs on the active roster for a reason. Whether the reason was literally to troll, draft Twitter or whatnot. I can see if the Eagles score 21 points, they've won the game because the Giants have, the Giants literally this. Oh, no, I'm not getting into it because I don't want to get into too much of a frenzy. But first to 21 wins, and I think the Giants could be playing this game till November and struggle to get to 21.
If they thought they struggled with their offensive line against Dallas and Detroit, as someone who watched the Washington, who have a very good offensive line, against the Eagles, this could be an absolute massacre.
I mean, the way that the Eagles could go is just say, we know Eric Flowers is garbage. We're coming right over the middle at you. And literally leave Flowers and, let Flowers' confidence get up and pummel him up the middle.
Absolutely.
Because Timmy Jernigan is a bad man. And he's just... I watched a bit of the coaches' film, I say, of the Redskins game. Thank you, Game Pass, for giving us coaches' films of a game that was 10 days ago, just as on the same day that week 2 was the fixtures were starting. Thanks very much for that. Most helpful. And literally the fumble, touchdown, the last scoring play. Literally, Fletcher Cox threw Brandon Sheriff aside like he wasn't there. And this is a Pro Bowl right guard. And Brandon Graham literally just said to Morgan Moses, "Get out of my way." And the two of them... Yeah,
also a very good right tackle in the league.
The two of them just converged on Kirk Cousins. He hasn't got a chance.
No, he hasn't. They're the hot takes. I'm sure we'll have more next week. Now let's get on with the games of the week.
The games of the week.
Touchdown, 85 yards. He's going to score. He's going to score. He's going to score. Touchdown.
As we're a UK-based show, I gave Dutton the games of the week, and Dutton said, "Are we not contractually obliged to talk Ravens Jaguars?" This week I gave in, and we are going to talk about Ravens Jaguars, although I apologise that means we won't talk about Titans against Seahawks, which should be an infinitely better game. Although the Seahawks have shown about as much offensive prowess as either of these two teams.
That's an insult to these two teams.
Yeah. There are some interesting things going on here, Dutton, and if you want to enlighten anybody on them, can you please do now?
Well, the most interesting thing is that the most pass-happy team of the last 2 years have actually run the ball 20 more times than they've passed it through the first 2 games. That's the Baltimore Ravens. They are second in the league in rush attempts.
It started well, Dutton, in Baltimore with the rushing game. Do we expect that to continue?
Well, as good as the Jags D was, week 1, Saxonville and all that, they have allowed they've seen the 9th most rushing attempts against them. They've allowed the 4th most rushing yards, 272, and they're giving up 4.6 yards per carry. Now, if you flip that, let's say the Ravens have had 74 rush attempts to 54 passes. They've had 293 rush yards, which is the 3rd in the league, but they're only averaging 4 yards a carry. Now, I watched the Ravens Browns game today, or the recap of it, not the coach's film. I'll wait till Christmas for that.
Yeah, of course.
And the Ravens play down the middle. That's their offense. They don't look to the perimeter. They look down the middle. So they're going to run up the gut. I mean, they've lost Marshall Yonder. That's a huge blow for any offence. You know, one of the best guards or best offensive linemen in football. They're going to go up the middle. Their offence is up the middle, let's say, even in the passing game, because that's where Flacco is looking for Macklin and also for Ben Watson, who came back from the dead last week. And that's where the Jaguars are susceptible. They have given up, I think it's 12 of 17 targets to tight ends in 2 games. I mean, they annihilated the Texans in week 1. CJ Fedorowicz was a tight end 1 in week 1. He finished tight end 12 in PPR scoring. How did you do that? They didn't score any points. And then last week, Jonnu Smith and Delaney Walker boat raced them. And it was 27 points between them. So it doesn't exactly smack confidence of the for the Jaguars, considering that where they are weak plays pretty much into how the Ravens are attacking teams this year.
I mean, the Ravens are 2-0, but they have only beaten the Bengals and the Browns. However, it's got that when the Ravens are good, they play like this formula, if you know what I mean. When they've been at the best, they've had a stout/excellent defence. You've had a quarterback who isn't trying to pull up any trees, but may go for a deep ball now and again, and ball control. And that's what they're doing. And, you know, I think we'd mentioned in previous podcasts, during the preseason especially, that, you know, was John Harbaugh under pressure? Was it a year where he had to get results? And I wonder if he's just gone back to basics and thought, you know what, let's get this sorted. Let's do what we're best at. Let's not try and throw it 70 times with Joe Flacco every game, because that's not what we are. We never have been, and we never will be.
Well, when we think of the surname Harbaugh and we think of a putrid, moribund offence that all of a sudden started playing to its strength, you have Greg Roman's name attached to it, because that's what the 49ers did in 2011. And it's basically what Greg Roman's done. It's almost to the point to say that this is not a Marty Moore-and-Wee offence. Couldn't be further from it. It has all the hallmarks of a Greg Roman offence. So basically, he's offensive coordinator in all but name. And, you know, you can see some of the play. You know, literally every play is either a run or it's a play action or it's a slight rollout.
Yeah.
You know what's coming. Stop it. And
exactly.
It's very hard to stop because the Ravens are committed to it. It's not we'll run it today. It's, no, we will run it. And it's very hard to stop that. I mean, I'd say at 4 yards per carry, it's not that great. The running backs aren't that great. But it's effective and it's working.
It is absolutely something. On the Jags side, I mean, you know, as you said, Saxonville in week 1, not great in week 2, but I wonder if it's because of how bad the offense is. And a question I've got is, like, how long is it until we get that, you know, what I can only call Buddy Ryan style mutiny between the defense and the offense? When does the defense say, I'm going to have to start punching the offensive players in the face because I can't do any more, and all we end up doing is getting beat 28-6 because I'm on the field for 45 minutes?
It should have already started. And we've seen this, as I say, some of the best books of the last 15 years, 20 years of NFL teams. There is this divide between a great defense and an awful offense. And I'm talking, you know, bringing the heat, the 92 Philadelphia Eagles, collision low crosses with the 2011 New York Jets, and there's next man up, the 2004 Baltimore Ravens. Great defenses, piss poor offenses. Your defense is there to stop the other team scoring points, and as you always say, as Joe Gibbs said, get the ball back. You can't expect them to score points, and also you can't expect them to keep teams out if you're giving them 20-yard fields. And I say, Blake Bortles is not a game manager. He cannot be turned into a game manager because he is an idiot when it comes to reading the field. He is an interception waiting to happen, and he is a dagger to any hopes this team has of being competitive, because you can't just run it anymore. Doesn't happen. You have to throw it sometimes, and he's a liability every time he does.
Absolutely done. Ravens at Jaguars, although it's London. The Ravens are favoured by 3.5, Neil.
I will take the over, and
which is 39.5.
Yeah, I'll take the Ravens. I just think that they're not going to come over here and try to put on a spectacle. They're coming over here to whoop some ass.
Yeah, there's a possibility if the first, say, quarter and a half doesn't go well, that we go back to old school London games where you end up being like 42-24. Do you know, like, but it's like 35-7 at the half. Do you know, one of them type of games? So yeah, I'm going to take the Ravens, and I'm going to take the over as well. I expect the Ravens to dominate the ball and dominate the game, and then we get Blake Bortles in garbage time, I'd assume.
But hopefully after 10 years, the English fans won't be cheering kickoffs more than touchdowns.
Yeah, Neil's referring to a tweet that he saw today, which is ridiculous, completely wrong. And
it's the long snapper of the 2007 Giants who said while he was practicing punts in 2007 at Wembley, there was a smorgasbord of different jerseys. So you're already implying that there are different fans there. That's great. And they said, fans seem to be more excited by kickoffs than touchdowns. Well, okay, I'm going to stop you there. The offences were shite in that game.
Yeah, I was there.
Yeah, utter garbage. So if we were cheering for kickoffs, it's because we saw more kickoffs than touchdowns, dickhead. And also, don't talk crap. Because I say, we were there and it didn't happen. It did not happen. But don't worry, ESPN. Don't you let the truth get in the way of your crappy little narrative. You keep doing that. Very good.
Here we go. I haven't got nothing more to add, really. Next game is an absolute belter in Ford Field, and it's the Falcons at the Lions. We'll get to the score in a minute, but the Falcons are favoured by 3 and the over is 50.5. Neil, I guess the first question is, two NFC teams. Could this be a playoff game come January? And is there a possibility that these could be 2 division winners?
It's very possible. We've seen that the Vikings are quite the different team without Sam Bradford. Can you imagine, though, say, having an MRI and they can't tell whether your leg is well or not because there's that much scar tissue? You're not a boxer. You've not had road accidents.
But the thing is, though, this is where we talk about, where's the NFL going? Like, Sam Bradford has been in hundreds of road accidents. Unfortunately, they've been head-to-head collisions with other players. Yeah.
The Packers were hot and cold. They were excellent against the Seahawks for long periods, but then got boat raced by the Falcons. The Bears are awful. The Vikings, the top of the division. It's just a question of they need to keep scoring points and can't go into a funk like where they had last season, where Matt Stafford is either throwing 3 touchdowns or none. The Falcons are just, again, much like the Raiders, are just purring, and it doesn't seem there's been any drop-off at all from Shanahan to Sarkisian.
So, and I guess that's the question, Dutton, is after 2 weeks, are we comfortable that the Falcons' offense is going to be okay? There's no real... I mean, I don't think it's going to be as good as last year, but we're comfortable that it's still going to be a top 10 offense and how the team wins games.
Yeah, I say they struggled to run the ball in week 1 against the Bears, but found much more fertile ground against the Packers. Freeman and Coleman is as good a 1-2 punch at running back as there is in the league. Julio Jones made plays, but he's not getting funneled targets. He's not getting 15, 20 looks a game. Mohamed Sanu looks really good. Taylor Gabriel's hardly being used. And Austin Hooper, despite his 88-yard touchdown run in week 1, they're hardly using him as well. But they don't look like they're struggling for ideas. So, yeah, their offense is paying. Their defense is really good as well. It's really young. It's fast. It's not aggressive, but it's got an edge. There's a few players who, they're pushing it close. I'm looking at you, Keanu Neal, Deion Jones, and a few others. But yeah, they're a fun team to watch because, it literally looks like they look like one of these lucky gits who doesn't get hangovers, can get up the next morning and get straight back on it.
What the Falcons are is what the Seahawks want to be on offense, and what the Jaguars try to be on defense. They've got those teams. They've got their coordinators from the original Seattle teams. They got Dan Quinn as their head coach, and they've drafted well to allow them to have a young, feisty defense, we'll call it, Dutton. And what they have got on offense is what Russell Wilson hasn't got, which is someone to protect Matt Ryan and weapons that are at the moment better than the ones in Seattle. And they're doing really well, and it's working out. And I think I think we said this in the preview for the South. I know I did. I expected the offense to drop off a little bit, but I expected the defense to improve quite dramatically, just based on the fact there was a lot of rookies. So to be second, there's a lot of rookies in second years. You become second and third years, and you become a bit more aware of the schemes and systems and whatever. And I think that's panning out. And I think, there was a question of, will we see a hangover? At the moment, we haven't. And if we don't see a hangover, this could be, 11 and 12 win team. And let's be honest, I can't wait to see them play the Bucks.
I mean, the one downside, of course, is that they've lost Vic Beasley for an extended period of time. He's their only really, really great pass rusher. And they are talking of maybe bringing Dwight Freeney back in, but Freeney showed last year good rotational guy at this stage of his career. You can't put him and expect him to replicate what Vic Beasley's been doing.
Absolutely not done. After a breakout slash fantasy gasm week for all what I'm sure NFL players call the nerds, for your boy Golladay, he was quiet in week 2. Is there a cause for concern, or was it just a blip because it was just one of those games where they managed it through?
They managed it. He still got target down the field. Still showing that's how they want to use him. But ultimately, it wasn't a Matt Stafford day. I mean, he threw a couple of touchdowns, but it was a day of defense, special teams, and ground game. So no worries at all. We still know that Detroit are going to play 11 personnel. I mean, Marvin Jones has been targeted 4 times in 2 games. Got 2 touchdowns. Golden Tate gets his. Ebron finally emerged from his 2-year slumber. No concern at all about the moment, or Babytron, as JJ Zacharyson calls him. I prefer the moment. I think it's cleverer.
Yeah, I suppose so. Falcons at Lions. Falcons are favoured by 3, and the over is 50.5.
I'm going to take the Falcons. But it's going to be high scoring. I think basically I trust their defence to make more stops than I do the Lions.
You're going to take over or under 50.5? It's a big number. That is a big number. It's a big number.
I'm going to take under.
I am... Do you know what? If I had some testicles, I'd pick the Lions. But I don't. And I think you're probably right that the Falcons' defence makes more stops than the Lions. I'm going to take the Falcons. However, I will take the under. Probably some kind of, 25-21 style game. Be close. But I'm just going to take the Falcons, maybe win by 4 points.
May I just, breaking news, just depress you somewhat? Speaking Wednesday, Coach Jay Gruden said Jordan Reed, chest, toe, is not healthy right now.
Let's be brutally honest. Jordan Reed, fantastic player, has never been healthy for Washington, never will be healthy, and deep down should probably retire.
Rob Kelly was limited in practice on Wednesday.
Samaji P. Ryan, so that would be not necessarily an issue, because in theory that's all Fat Rob did. Big bodied Rob. We're not bullies. At the end of the day, for Washington, I don't know how we've got onto this debate. The yards are won by offensive line beating defensive line, not really by tremendously talented running backs.
Yeah.
Final game, Dutton, and the final game of the weekend, Monday Night Football. It's Chiefs at Chargers. At the moment, Chiefs favoured by 3, and the Chargers are, and then the over/under is 47.5. It's a question, Dutton, that I want you to answer. What is, after the last 2 weeks, can you think of and the last 2 seasons, maybe 3 seasons? I would like you to come up with the most elaborate way that the Chargers can lose this week.
The most elaborate way I can think of is literally the Chargers winning, but then in the immediate aftermath of the game, it's revealed that the referee was replaced by his evil twin.
Much like when
the Heaveners,
when Andre the Giant won the world title. I like that
because honestly, there's no other more bizarre. They're all out of options for how to lose games, how to blow these games.
I see they're up by 5, and they go to kick a field goal to to make it 8. The Korean guy hits it off 2 posts. Someone catches it, runs it back for a touchdown. So they then lose by 2.
There is, of course, leading by 1 and then they take an accidental safety. The punter runs on the back of his own end zone or something.
I mean,
but
we're joking.
They haven't had a kick 6 yet, so yeah, that's a good one.
We are possibly joking, but like, how the charge? I don't know. Are we? I'm not really. I'm not saying the Chargers have paired, but they've been, beyond competitive, and somehow haven't won either game. I mean, like icing the kicker never works, and it worked. They've then I can't. Okay, I'm just gonna have a Anthony Lynn. Get your notebook out. I've just got a few words for you. Don't settle for a field goal. Kick a field goal. Get as many yards as you can. Don't settle. I know you're new, so it's fine. We'll give you a one-off. Don't ever do that again. Don't ever do that. Put him on the hash mark that he wants to be on. Run 4 more yards.
Yeah.
Throw it 6 more yards. Do whatever you need to do. Don't do that. Whatever that was, don't do that again.
Yeah. His hash mark is not important. His distance is.
Believe you me, kicking a 34-yarder is easier than a 43-yarder. It's just basic physics and maths, guys. Don't overcomplicate this. After the Chargers, Dutton, you saw it firsthand last week. I guess the question is Kareem Hunt for real?
Oh God, yeah. He was bottled up. I mean, through the most of the first 3 quarters, he was bottled up. The Eagles shut him down. They shut Tyreek Hill down. Kelsey was killing them with paper cuts, but it was like you're thinking, no, this is okay. And then he busted off a huge run, and plus to say he's involved in the passing game. Only had 8 targets through 2 games, but that's 4 in each game. It was 5 in his first game, 3 this one. He's caught them all, so he's multi-purpose, and he's damn effective when he's got the ball, especially in fantasy. He's put this way: if you've got Kareem Hunt, you don't have a problem. You have a every week RB1. You don't have a problem.
Is your only? I guess you say that. I hear what you're saying. I see what you're saying. I visualise these sort of myself, and then I look at the sideline and I see Andy Reid and go, "Can I have an RB1 and Andy Reid as my head coach at the same time?" I don't know if that's allowed.
I think the problem is, is that when Reid had Westbrook and he had McCoy. These people. He had quarterbacks who literally could do more themselves, especially with the passing game. Whereas Alex Smith is, he's not a game manager. I don't like that phrase. He's a game facilitator, and he is, ultimately we know that this offense is built to run the ball and run it a lot. So, it's always risky with Big Red, but when they're rolling. I'd like to think he will keep with what works, and it is working at the moment.
What doesn't seem to be working in San Diego is Melvin Gordon in the running game. Is this a cause for concern for fantasy owners who I would assume drafted Melvin pretty high this year?
Well, who'd have thought that taking first-round running backs was a bad idea? If only there was some kind of strategy or theory that would stop people from doing this so they wouldn't be burnt by David Johnson being injured, LaShawn McCoy getting 3 yards, whatever it was, against the Panthers, Ezekiel Elliott being shut down, Jordan Howard being crap, Melvin Gordon being crap. If only there was a theory. If only. But anyway, using a...
Preach there, philosopher Karl Marx.
There's a metric that they have at Numberfire. It's called net expected points. And basically what it is, it looks at the likelihood of a player scoring points from a down and distance on every spot in the field.
Mm-hmm.
Right. In this metric of running backs with at least 20 rushing attempts this season, and that 29 of them, Melvin Gordon is 27th in rushing and net expected points per play. There's also the metric that goes onto this is called rushing success rate, and what that is that's every rushing play that increases your net expected points Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So of 29 running backs, Melvin Gordon is 23rd. He's not run the ball well. They got 3.1 yards per carry against the Dolphins. The Broncos in 2 games this season have averaged 2.9 yards a carry against them. So he's come up against some fairly stout defenses. The Chiefs, for all their failings or successes, they are averaging 4.4 yards per attempt. I expect Gordon to get better. He's still involved in the passing game as well, which he's been a lot more efficient at than as a runner this year. It's a blip, but if we have faith that the Chargers can turn it around, he is essential. So, yeah, it's not something to panic about too much.
Dutton, Chiefs at Chargers. Chiefs are favoured by 3, and the over-under is 47.5.
They both sound about right to me. So, yeah, I will take the Chiefs to win, and I will push at that score.
47.5. I'd like to see how they do that. I'm going to take
the Chargers will find a way.
Yeah, Chargers probably will find a way. I'm actually going to take the Chargers. I think you can't. They win games like this when they shouldn't win them, and they lose a billion games in elaborate ways. I'm going to go over. Could be a high-scoring affair. Maybe 27-23 Chargers. Let's do that.
Bold.
Thank you. Go hard or go home, I think is the technical term. Dutton, I know you struggle to get this on Gridiron due to, I'm sure Will will blame Matt will blame Ollie will blame Will, they'll all blame you.
It's definitely my fault some way.
But, it's theirs, they're the tech guys, although they can't get a Mac to work. Dalton, let's show them how it's done, and let's show their fancy darling of the week.
Hello, darling.
Well, I think it'll be Ben Watson, who literally is available everywhere in fantasy leagues. The Jaguars, as I say, have given up the 3rd most fancy points to tight ends. They've allowed 12 of 17 targets to be turned into receptions. And as I say, this is a middle-of-the-field offense. I think the Ravens will feature him strongly. He was 8 of 8 for 91 last week against the Browns. So, yeah, Ben Watson, who I actually did write about this, I'll pat myself on the back this, back in June for Gridiron Experts, just after Dennis Pitter went down. I said, you don't need to panic, Baltimore. You have a tight end. It just took them a little while to get on the same page as me.
They don't do this on Gridiron, but we always do. Let's have a fancy loser.
There are a few. I think it is safe to say goodbye on your fantasy team for the rest of the season. LeGarrette Blount, Kenny Britt, Brandon Marshall. But then I got thinking about Brandon Marshall, and I just thought this week the fancy losers are the Giants' offense. There's no point trotting. If Beckham is not 100%, no point trotting him out. Evan Ingram, the Eagles don't really. Travis Kelce was something of a blip, as the Eagles have been very strong against tight ends over the last year and a half, against, the last 2 years in fantasy. Brandon Marshall doesn't look interested and doesn't look healthy. Sterling Shepard has vanished. Their ground game is pitiful. I just think, and Eli Manning is neither helping nor hindering. He's just as big a problem as everyone else.
Says the man who picked OBJ to be the wide receiver 1. Anyway,
because I thought if you get eight 8-yard slants a game, you can still be pretty good.
I know. I just like teasing because you just bigged yourself up on Ben Watson. So
yeah, let's look at our defensive rookie of the year pick, shall we?
Let's not. Right, let's move on and let's look at our daily fantasy teams of the week.
Mains and Duts. Daily fantasy team of the week.
Show me the money.
Show me the money indeed, Dalton. Week 3. Hit me with your quarterback.
Well, quarterback, as always, I like to get the stack in. And the quarterback I've gone for this week is Jameis Winston. As despite the goodwill that they seem to have, and the defense is good, it is quite strong. They weren't that good against the against the Steelers. The Vikings still allowed the 23rd. They're 23rd against quarterbacks on DraftKings. And so Famous Jameis is $6,000, and he will do for me.
I nearly did a stacked up with a quarterback and a running back, actually. But I couldn't bring myself to pick Jay Cutler. I did, and he was in it, and then took him out because I'm a wuss. And then thought, if you're going to watch your team get destroyed through the air, you may as well profit from it. So I will do. And that'll be Derek Carr, who's 6,800 and is playing my Washington professional football team. Washington are the quintessential 8-8 team. 1 week they're good and 1 week they're bad. Just so everyone knows, they were kind of good last week, so there's a high possibility they're going to be kind of bad this week. The issue with being kind of bad this week is they're playing the Raiders.
Do you want to bring up my inspirational tweet from Sunday regarding your two biggest offensive players?
Go for it, Neil.
That Hayden Christensen and Natalie Portman showed more chemistry in Revenge of the Sith than Kirk Cousins and Terrell Pryor have presently.
Just so you know, that's zero chemistry. For those who haven't watched, just in case you were unsure.
Yeah, about as long-lasting a relationship on the outside as me with a salad.
Running back one, Neil.
London-born Jay Ajayi, playing the Jets. They're, trash. So I splashed out 7,700 on London-born Jay Ajayi.
My name's Paul Mannering, and I endorse this message. London's own Jay Ajayi, 7,700 against the Jets. Because, as Neil said, Jets flat out stink. Running back 2, Neil.
Well, as we know, DraftKings is PPR. So in what should be, as we say, a fairly high-scoring affair, and also to try and scrimp some cash to get Ajayi and someone else who we'll get to in a minute, I went with Theo Riddick, 5,100.
I've done something that you should never do, and that's pick a running back on the New England Patriots. I'll pick Mike Gillislee, only because he loves a short yardage touchdown. I didn't really have any money left. That 5,700 will hopefully get me 4 carries, 2 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Or as I like to call it, the Matt Asiata line.
Yeah, / Jerome Bettis in his final year.
Mm-hmm.
Wide receiver 1, Neil.
Keenan Allen. Did you see?
Yes, love Keenan Allen. You can't say anything that you won't see me loving Keenan Allen.
As I said on Twitter, that video, I think it was against Bradley Roby. With one turn, he sent him for the, it was against Tony Lippert, sorry. With the first move, he sent him for the hot dogs, and after he caught the ball, he sent him back for the nachos. It was just an absolute treat to watch. Keenan Allen, the Chargers are playing Kansas City, as we know, but Kansas City, they've allowed the 30th most fantasy points per game to wide receivers so far this season. Obviously, they gave up a touchdown to Alshon Jeffrey last week and Nelson Aguilar. So Keenan Allen, we know he's going to see a fair amount of targets. 7,200. I'm happy to pay it.
I've gone for Mike Evans because he's awesome. And the Vikings haven't been great against wide receivers. He is 7,500. And I like his work. Wide receiver 2, Neil.
Mike Evans, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 7,500.
There's the stack, ladies and gentlemen. There's the stack. He'd be good. After making fun of the Seattle Seahawks offense, I've gone for Doug Baldwin as my wide receiver 2. He is playing the Titans. He's 6,400. It can't get any worse. It literally can't get any worse.
It can.
Well, we're about to find out. Wide receiver 3, Neil.
This is dependent on his quarterback playing.
Hello, Vikings wide receiver.
Yeah, because as I said, again, I'm gonna name the drop and big myself up. As I said on the Nat Coombs show on Tuesday, if you look at Stephon Diggs without Sam Bradford, he drops down to like a wide receiver 4. With Sam Bradford, he's a wide receiver 2 with wide receiver 1 upside. So Stephon Diggs, 6,500. They're playing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who weren't tested last week. Diggs was awesome in week 1. And as long as Bradford plays, I'm with Diggs still.
I've gone for Cole Beasley and the Cardinals. Against the Cardinals, for the Dallas Cowboys. He's 4,700.
Why you ran out of money?
Well, there's 2 things. I'd run out of money, and I think they just need to get back to basics. back to what they did last year. And last year, that was getting a ball to Cole Beasley. Let's have a bit of faith, Neil. And let's be honest, if this doesn't work, that's good news for me, because I hate Dallas.
True.
Tight end, Dutton.
First tight end, I'm not a huge fan of this offense in general, but Jack Doyle has been a fairly solid receiver so far for Jacoby Brissett. He's 3,600 and he's playing the Browns. And if the Browns do one thing well, and they don't, it's bleed fantasy points to tight ends. And I say they got housed by Ben Watson last week. So Jack Doyle, the 1920s Chicago gangster, 3,600.
What's really annoying about this show sometimes is when we do Daily Fantasy Team of the Week, we don't see each other's team. And it's really annoying when I pick someone who I think Neil isn't going to pick, and he's either going to pull a face, which you can't see, or go, ooh, interesting pick. And then he already picks him because he gets the pick first. I've also picked Jack Doyle 8 times. Jacoby Brissett threw to him last week. Quarterbacks in new teams love safety blankets, and I'd never seen a 1920s Chicago gangster as a safety blanket before, but there you go. Jack Doyle is, as Neil quite rightly points out, it's 3,600. I unfortunately will not see any of the catches as I refuse to watch Colts against Browns, as already discussed. Dutton, who's your flex?
The Washington Redskins have allowed a 93% completion percentage to tight ends through 2 games.
Woo!
93%.
Yeah, I know. And do you know what? Do you know what the one that wasn't was the interception to win the game against against the Rams. Mason Foster's only good play probably in 3 years.
13 of 14 for 204 yards. The only saving graces, one, as you say, the last target was an interception, and 2, they haven't given up a touchdown yet. I'm going with Jared Cook. Now, he burnt me. He was one of my streaming options last week, and he burnt me because they were too good against the Jets, that they didn't need him. He still saw like 20% of the targets, but his average depth of target, which in week 1 had been 9 yards, in week 2 was 2.2. Jesus Christ, Jared, you're taking handoffs. You know better than anyone else to say they can't hang with tight ends. Jared Cook, 3,100, and I don't usually go double tight end, but I think he could seriously put a dent in the Redskins this week, and I'm happy to see it.
Of course you are. Jared Cook has 18% share and has caught 8 of 11 targets, and Washington have given up 100 yards to tight ends in each of their first 2 games. That's from your friend of mine, Raymond Summerlin, who's an absolute legend and should be followed at all costs.
Good old Ray.
There's a weird thing that's happened in this last pick. Is that
you ran out of money?
No. I listened to Neil.
Christ.
And I picked Rashard Higgins. Wide receiver 2, I guess, /1 of the Cleveland Browns. That's right. I picked 2 players in the Browns Colts game. He takes over from Corey Coleman, who has hands made of glass, and he had 7 catches last week. I expect that to continue, as the Higgins-Kaiser thing. That's probably something that happened during the off-season. He's $4,000, and yeah, there we go. What a flyer. Final pick, Dutton. Defense.
Eagles, 3,000.
Yeah.
Not bothered about points. It's sacks and turnovers.
I've gone similar, and I've gone for Broncos against the Bills because, I don't know if anyone's seen that Bills offense, but it's challenging the Giants offense for ineptitude. It stinks. Dutton, let's give him a quick run through. Quarterback,
James Winston.
I've got Derek Carr. Running back 1,
London-born Jay Ajayi.
Cosign. Running back 2,
Theo Riddick.
I've got Mike Gillisley. Wide receiver 1,
Keenan Allen.
I've got Mike Evans. Wide receiver 2,
Mike Evans.
I've got Doug Baldwin. Wide receiver 3,
Stephon Diggs.
I've got Cole Beasley, wide receiver 4. Sorry, tight end. What?
Jack Doyle.
I've got 1920s gangster Jack Doyle, flex.
Jared Cook.
Neil Dutton's Rashard Higgins, as he will be known, and defense.
Eagles.
I've got them for the Broncos. Please gamble responsibly and don't blame us if you lose.
No.
Dutton, any final thoughts?
For the first 2 weeks of the season, I have been responsible for the Gridiron Twitter account between 4 and 5. So any fantasy questions you have there, any start-sit dilemmas, it's at Gridiron. Say between 4 and 5. Get your questions in early if you want, and I'll get to them when I take over. I'm then kicked out at 5 o'clock when Mr. Sherry takes back over. And also,
hey, at Gridiron, why am I not allowed to do picks at 5 o'clock on your picks website?
Do them on Friday.
Hey, at Gridiron, I wasn't in the country. Why am I not allowed to do picks an hour before the game?
Again, these are all you issues. And also, I'm not sure what time I'll be on, but I will probably be on with Nat and maybe I and Mike Carlson on Sunday. But I think it's going to be a weekly thing going forward. I will be on with Nat on Tuesdays with Mike Carlson, which is just a joy.
I got to do it once.
Yeah, I'm kind of a big deal.
Kind of a big deal. I'm pretty sure I got to do it because you were away. I won't take it personally. I haven't got anything to plug unless we want to talk about work. So, you know what, Dutton? These top guys are well and truly out.